things. So let's begin. So I want to take everyone through candidate recruitment. And before we start, some housekeeping. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat area. And when the presentation comes to a conclusion, I will be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. So on the agenda today, we're going to talk about candidate safety and why that has become imperative now and what has changed. We're also going to address a perfect storm that we're starting to see across North America, in Canada, and certainly in the US. Branding. Does your branding need to be tweaked a bit? As we will see when we go through the presentation, that what a job seeker is looking for now is very different than what a job seeker was looking for pre-COVID. And then your job descriptions, why it's important that we make changes to the wording on those as well. So I thought this was an interesting slide. We are all exiting kind of the intermission phase. It was an interesting 90 to 120 days. Things are starting to slowly get better. And hopefully in your area, things are starting to open up. Obviously, the open up is somewhat inconsistent. Certainly in the US, there are states that the protocols seem to be followed, and then there's some states that the protocols do not seem to be followed. I thought this was kind of interesting and certainly applies in today's world. If you look at some of these quotes, you cannot stay in one place. You either go forward or go backward. And think about that from a candidate perspective. If your expectation is you're going to be engaging candidates, you're going to be reaching out to candidates in the same way that you did pre-COVID, I think you're going to be in a little bit of a surprise because a lot has changed. The other one that I find somewhat interesting is nothing can bring disaster more rapidly to a business and to its people than a breakdown in communication and understanding. In the staffing industry, we really have three communication strategies. We need to refine our communication strategy for our internal staff. We need to refine our communication strategy for our talent or our candidates. And we need to refine our communication strategy for our clients and our prospects. So think about that. Think about changes that you might have gone through internally. And do you need to be recommunicating them? And do you have a strategy to get that information disseminated? So the good and the bad, Canada, like the rest of the world, has seen significant unemployment. Governments have helped with some benefits, but like the rest of the world, it's the highest level of unemployment that we have seen in a long, long time. In Canada, like a lot of other countries, the government is providing some additional incentive, but that incentive is going to be expiring somewhat soon, and that's going to cause what I'm calling the perfect storm. And by the perfect storm, I'm saying it's going to be the largest free agent candidate marketplace that any of us have probably ever seen. So there's going to be a lot of people, as the government additional incentives start to expire, that are looking for work. And they're going to be looking for work. The question is, are you positioned to help them find that particular job? So there was a survey recently done with thousands of candidates, and the survey found that candidates are disengaged, they're disinterested, they're disenchanted, and they're open to change. So what does that mean? That means the candidates that still have a job, that are in a full-time organization, are probably more likely to be open to change than they were pre-COVID. And candidates that are on the sidelines and might not be working for a variety of reasons, what are they looking for to enable them to go to work? So it used to be that, let me rephrase that, what are they caring less about? They're caring less about pay. They don't want to have to commute. Culture is not as important as it used to be. The location is not as important. and the job requirements are not as important. So what are they looking for? The WIIFM, what's in it for me? So the survey said that candidates are looking for 4 very important things. Safety. What is the safety at the workplace? Can you articulate them? Do you have pictures of that workplace? Is your workplace doing any type of specific testing for the candidate? Flexibility. That person now, he or she is looking for complete flexibility. They had the ability to work at home or not work at all for an extended period of time, and their priorities have changed. The work-life balance has changed. People are starting to realize in this pandemic what really is important. While we all like money and money provides us some great opportunities, we also realized that there's some other things that might be a little more important in life. And certainly remote working. If you have that opportunity to offer them, I can tell you that what we are finding, that's going to be a huge feather in your cap to offer them the ability to remote work, because a large percentage of them have been remote working for the last 60 to 120 days. Your brand. It's very important for you to sit back and think about your brand. There's probably been some changes, and we will go through some of them, but think about things that changed. And as I said, we'll discuss them in greater detail. But for instance, onboarding. Are candidates able to come into your office now? Is that a change? How about your clients? Have you partnered with maybe a medical facility and you're doing testing for everyone at that workplace, not just for the talent that you're providing for that workplace? And is that a competitive advantage or a new value proposition you have? So think about that. Think about some of the changes and make sure, as we discussed earlier, that you have a communication strategy to get those messages out. Now, when we look at candidates, and we certainly look from a marketing perspective, obviously your website is your hub. I would strongly recommend that you make some changes to your website and you articulate some of the COVID-19 changes that might have occurred in your organization. We're seeing a lot of clients that are spending a lot of time taking all their paperwork, making it electronic with electronic signatures, the ability to upload legal documents, pictures, IDs, etc. So we certainly want to make sure that we talk about that. If you're doing Zoom interviewing, we certainly want to make sure that we talk about that as well. If there's new safety protocols at your job site, if there's testing. So it's important when a job seeker, he or she comes to your website, that there's some place on your website that's going to be talking about some of the changes that exist in our new world. Additionally, when you look at some of the spokes, what are we doing from a content and email marketing perspective? Are we reaching out and touching them and educating them to talk about what changes have existed in our firm, in our clients' workplace, and anything else that might affect them? Imagery. You know, we all, for the past few years, have had images and videos that articulate and speak to the diverse workforce that we're employing. But now we need to include images of masks and gloves and all that, because that's their new person that they relate to. What does that workplace look like? Can I see someone else that's in a workplace? Is that entire factory line, is everyone wearing a mask? What happens when I walk into that firm? All these things we need to make sure that when we use our social media platforms, we're making that job seeker feel comfortable. And we'll talk about some of the social media and Google services, but the traffic on those platforms has significantly increased over the last few months. So your social media, as I said before, you want to update your imagery. You want to create video messages. Is it different when you walk in your office? Maybe have some of your internal staff talk about some of the issues they went through. Maybe put a video of a client site and have the client talk through what he or she is doing at their workplace. Safety is going to be paramount for that job seeker, and they want to feel comfortable before they go into a new work environment. Like I just said, are there new posts? Are there new procedures? Are there new protocols? Have you put that on your social media? Do you want to drive them back to your website for a more in-depth knowledge of some of the changes to your protocols? A/B job testing. It used to be that when we made a job description, we talked about the workplace, the pay rate, and the duration of the assignment. That really is not relevant anymore, or that's not fair. It's relevant, it's not paramount. What that job seeker is looking for is, what does that workplace look like? How are you going to protect me? What happens if someone comes into the job place and they're sick, or they might potentially have the virus? What are you doing? What is that workplace? And what's in it for me? The WIIFM scenario. And lastly, have you changed the way you're onboarding people? We are finding a lot of candidates, certainly in the US, and I'm sure in Canada is the same, they're not allowing people to come into the office. So how are we bringing people on? Are we doing Zoom interviews? Are they electronically signing documents? So we want to make sure that we're articulating this on our social media. So when we're reaching the people that are in our community and we're trying to engage them, we give them a level of comfort. So I stole this from Adecco, and thank you. This is obviously a CNN Appreciation Day, but notice the mask and the gloves. I can't stress enough that you make sure in your communication that you're showing what that new candidate, your new talent is looking like in today's world. It's not the same old, same old. All of us are wearing masks. We're all probably wearing gloves to different degrees. And this is the new norm. And quite honestly, it might be the new norm for a year or so. So we certainly want to make sure in communication, in our social media, any type of advertising, we're letting that job seeker, he or she, see a picture of someone that they can relate to from a demographic, from a skill set, and from a required uniform perspective. Advertise. It's a great opportunity. Traffic on social media platforms is now up over 40% and pushing 50%. It has become the new coffee break. It used to be that you were in a workplace, you had your break, you went and got a cup of coffee, maybe you sat and talked with a coworker, you went into someone's office. That's not happening now. Everyone's taking a break. They're going to their social media platforms and they're looking on social media. And even more importantly, 1 in 4 posts in social media are an advertisement for a good or service. So think about that. If you're not doing it and you're not staying in front of your talent and your candidates, I can assure you a competitor is. Again, with the social media posts, pictures of candidates coming in with masks, show that. Send that out in emails. Make people feel comfortable. Do a video email of a candidate and let them talk about what the experience was like if they're able to come into your office, or what the workplace might be like. It'll give people a comfort feeling of what it's going to be like when they go into that environment. If you're running job fairs, show pictures of what it's like when people go to job fairs. They're wearing masks, you're wearing masks, everyone's wearing masks, but let them feel comfortable. Even though everyone knows we wear masks, it's different when you see a picture of it and you walk up and experience than the fact that someone just tells you that you need to be wearing a mask. A chatbot. I'm sure a lot of you have seen chatbots. It's a great new technology feature. It's artificially intelligent driven, and it's a great opportunity that when job seekers come to your website, we can direct them to where we want to direct them. In our experience for the websites that we build and host and we track, over 90% of traffic to a client's website is that job seeker. So if he or she is coming to that site, let's use the chatbot to move them to our COVID-19 section, maybe some of our new safety resources, maybe our new onboarding material, if we have a new texting platform, whatever it is we want to do. If we can take some of the menial tasks away from that recruiter and make that recruiter more effective, obviously the recruiter is going to be filling more orders, and the job seeker is going to be happy because they're not waiting to get answers to questions that they can find out themselves. Email. I like to say email marketing is a great way to reach people that are in our network. You all have a plethora of email addresses over the years that you've collected from your candidates. Some are working with you, some have worked with you for certain periods of time. They might be employed by another service provider, but let's reach out, touch them, engage them, and re-educate them about what we are. You can, humanize your story, share stories about maybe some of the things you went through. You can create some really nice incentives with some stories. Talk about Netflix or shows that you're watching or trends or recipes. Make them feel like things are a little different now, right? We've all had a very hard awakening over the last 90 or 120 days. Who would have thought that a virus could affect the whole world and basically bring the whole world down to its knees? So let's take things down a notch, make things a little less formal, tell stories, engage people, create some incentives, and let them feel comfortable with your organization. I thought this was kind of interesting. The internet traffic is surging, but the pipes aren't bursting. So what does that mean? So digital marketing, which I would call Google advertising, is a great way to reach out to candidates. Traffic is up over 50%. Think about, first of all, from step one, your job board. Is your job board set up correctly? When someone clicks on a job on your job board, what is happening to that particular job? Are they going to the applicant tracking, or are they going to your website? Is it set up properly? Is the job SEO searchable? So all these things are important and imperative attributes. And from a branding perspective, we all go to Google to look for goods and services. So can I find you? Because if I can't find you, just like social media advertising, I'm sure I can find one of your competitors. So technology, have you taken the opportunity to look at your company and find out how you might be able to streamline some of the processes you have? If you're doing Zoom interviews, do you have new protocols? Do your candidates know how that works? Do you have the ability, do they need to sign off from the fact that you might be videotaping their interview, which is something that you might not have done before? Are you using a chatbot? Have your jobs or your job descriptions changing? Have you changed some of your onboarding? So think about where you can improve your process, make it more streamlined, and make it more effective. And from a website, as I said before, I think it's very important that you add either a call to action or a COVID-19 section that's going to talk about some of the significant changes that your company's going through, some of your clients might be going through, some of the testing, some of the safety protocols, et cetera. Everyone's a little bit uncomfortable. They want to go to work, they want to make some money, they want to feel good about themselves, but everyone has different situations. They might have elderly people at home, they might have kids at home, school starting in different degrees. Is it a hybrid? Is it full-time? Is it online learning? So make them feel comfortable. Content, certainly a great way. Using LinkedIn certainly is a tool. You write content and you share it in groups where your candidates are members of. It's a great way. We always find that in business, they tell us 20% of our clients give us 80% of our revenue. In LinkedIn, about 5% of the people push 95% of the content. So think about pushing content, whatever that content might be, into LinkedIn groups where candidates are going to be residing and looking around. That's really all I have. So as a summary, remember, it's the largest free agent marketplace that we have. Tell your story. You might have a new story now. Your brand has probably changed. Engage and communicate and adapt. And if anyone wants to reach me, here's my contact information. And if you have questions, I will be happy to answer questions. So here's a question. The first question comes in and it talks about changing your website. So what I would recommend is, I'm not saying make huge changes, but on a lot of websites, there's what we call to actions, whether it's search jobs, apply for a job, submit a job order. I would think about maybe changing one of those call to actions and call it COVID-19, or maybe change a main navigation to call it COVID-19, and talk about all the changes, whether it's safety protocols, whether it's new onboarding, whether there are changes at the client site, whether it's some remote opportunities. So think about that. I think it'll be very beneficial to you. And remember, who is your audience? Over 90% of the people that visit your website are the job seeker. Okay, we have another question, and it talks about social media advertising. I think social media advertising is highly effective. Just think about your experience over the past 90 and 120 days. You had goods and services follow you around. Did you buy any of those? Did you feel comfortable seeing that ad again? So it's a great opportunity. It's a great branding opportunity. And the beauty of social media is you get to pick the demographics of who you want to get your ad in front of. So think about that. That's going to be important as well. And there's one more, so it talks about job descriptions and how they should be changing. So as I said, I think that when we looked at clients before, the typical job description talked about the location, the pay rate, the duration, and the job requirements. All very important attributes of that job. But now they're not as important as where is the job? What is the safety of the job? Do I have the ability to do some remote working? What are the protocols of that job? What do I have to wear to go in that job? What is everyone else wearing? So think about that. A/B test, maybe try 2 or 3 different types of job descriptions and try to track it to see what is resonating more with the end users. And I think that'll be beneficial as well. So that's